Scorpio, thank you for being here with me today, truly. As we step into the energy of April 11th, 12th, I want you to take a moment and arrive here, fully, because what's moving through these next 2 days carries a quiet kind of significance that deserves your attention. I hope you've been taking care of yourself in the ways that matter beneath the surface. And if you felt drawn to this message, there's a reason for that. Something within you already recognizes that a shift is happening, even if you haven't fully put it into words yet. Before we go deeper, remember this. You are still the one who holds the direction of your life. No energy, no prediction, no outside influence replaces your ability to choose. These messages are here to guide, to reflect, to help you see more clearly, but the power has always remained with you. As April 11th, 12th unfolds, there's a subtle but undeniable movement happening within you. It may not look dramatic from the outside, but internally, something is beginning to shift. Something that touches the way you hold on, the way you respond, the way you try to keep things steady, even when they've already started to change. Sometimes, holding on can feel like strength. Sometimes, it feels like the only way to stay grounded. But there are moments, Scorpio, where that same grip begins to come from something deeper, something quieter, something rooted in the need to feel safe rather than truly aligned. And this is where the awareness begins. You may start to notice that certain things no longer feel the same. Привычные emotions, привычные patterns. They don't carry the same meaning they once did. It's not that they've disappeared. It's that you are no longer standing in the same place within yourself. So let me ask you something, gently. What are you still holding on to, simply because it feels familiar? You don't need to answer right away. Just let the question sit with you as we move forward. If you can already feel that something is shifting within you, comment 888 below. Let it be your way of acknowledging that you're ready to see what's really changing. Because in these next moments, we're going to explore what this shift is truly asking of you, and why this point in your journey matters more than it seems. You can start to see it in the small moments, the way your mind circles back to the same question again and again, as if the answer might finally settle something inside you. You think it's about clarity, about getting it right, but underneath that movement, there's something quieter, asking for certainty. It shows up when you try to read between every line, when you replay conversations, when you anticipate outcomes before they even have space to unfold. There's a subtle urgency in it, a need to stay one step ahead, to feel prepared for whatever might come next. And in those moments, it feels like control gives you stability. Like if you can just understand everything in advance, you'll be able to protect yourself from disappointment, from loss, from the unexpected turn. So you hold on tighter, to people, to plans, to meanings, believing that grip is what keeps things from slipping away. But look a little closer. There's a tension in that holding, a quiet strain that builds over time. It's like keeping your hand closed around something for so long that you stop feeling what's inside it, your focus shifting from connection to maintaining the grip itself. This is where something begins to reveal itself, because what you've been calling control is actually a form of protection, a way of staying within the edges of what feels known, what feels manageable, what feels safe enough to navigate. It isn't about love in the way you may have believed. It's about avoiding the space where things feel uncertain. Scorpio, there's nothing sluchiny about this pattern. It formed for a reason, shaped by moments where unpredictability left an imprint, teaching you that staying alert, staying aware, staying in control would keep you grounded. And yet, as you watch yourself move through these patterns now, you may begin to sense that something has shifted. The same strategies that once held everything together now carry a certain weight, a subtle heaviness that asks to be noticed rather than continued. You're beginning to see it, not all at once, but in fragments, in pauses, in the way your awareness lingers just a little longer than before. And as that awareness deepens, it starts to open the door to something else. The realization that this isn't just about what you're doing, but about what has been repeating underneath it all, waiting to be understood in a different way. It can begin in a moment that feels strangely familiar. You meet someone or step into a situation, and there's an immediate sense of recognition you can't quite explain. The conversation flows easily, the energy feels aligned, and for a brief second, it seems like everything is finally falling into place. And then, almost quietly, something shifts. A thought slips in. A question, a doubt, a subtle tension that wasn't there before. You start to read deeper into words, into pauses, into small changes in tone, as if your mind is trying to find something hidden beneath the surface. What once felt natural now feels like something you need to figure out. You've been here before. Maybe the details look different this time. A different person, a different setting, a different story on the outside. But the internal movement feels almost identical. The same emotional rhythm, the same rise of hope, followed by a quiet undercurrent of uncertainty that begins to grow. And without realizing it, you begin to respond in the same way. You lean in, then pull back. You observe more closely. You protect more carefully. You prepare for an outcome that hasn't even arrived yet. It feels like instinct, like part of who you are, like something deeply personal. But look at the pattern beneath it. This isn't just a reaction to what's happening now. It's connected to something older, something that has been shaping your expectations long before this moment appeared. A narrative formed from past experiences, where certain endings taught you to anticipate similar turns, even when the present is still unfolding. So you walk the same emotional path again, even when new paths are quietly opening beside you. It's like standing at a crossroads where one road feels familiar, almost automatic, and the other feels unknown, but lighter. And without even thinking, your steps follow what you already know, not because it leads you forward, but because it feels recognizable. Scorpio, this is where awareness begins to deepen, because once you start to see that you are not just experiencing something new, but stepping into a pattern that has repeated itself in different forms, something shifts inside your perception. The story begins to separate from the present moment, and in that space, a different kind of question starts to form. Not about what is happening around you, but about what has been quietly guiding your steps all along, leading you closer to a realization that changes everything. For a long time, it may have felt like you were waiting for something to arrive, the right moment, the right sign, the right opening that would finally make everything clear. You watched, you prepared, you stayed alert, holding yourself in a kind of readiness that never fully relaxed. And in that space, it seemed as if opportunity existed somewhere just outside of you, something you had to reach, earn, or align with perfectly before it could enter your life. So you adjusted, you refined, you tried to position yourself in a way that would finally allow things to move forward. But here is where something begins to shift. What if the door you've been waiting to open has never actually been locked? Pause with that for a moment. Feel into it, not as an idea, but as a possibility that lands somewhere deeper than logic. Because if the door isn't locked, then the question quietly changes. From when will it open to why haven't I turned the handle? This is the threshold. The realization doesn't arrive loudly. It unfolds with a kind of still clarity. The opportunities, the connections, the paths you've been searching for, they have been present in different forms, circling your life, waiting for something within you to shift into readiness. Not readiness in the sense of perfection, but in the sense of openness. Because holding on, as tightly as you have, created a kind of internal resistance that was easy to miss. It felt like effort, like care, like intention. But beneath it, there was a subtle closing, a hesitation to fully step into the unknown without guarantees. And this is where the release begins. Letting go isn't about losing something valuable. It's about loosening your grip just enough to move freely again. It's the moment your hand relaxes and suddenly what you were holding so tightly no longer defines your next step. The door has always been there. The path has always existed. What changes now is your relationship to it, the way you approach it, the way you allow yourself to step forward without needing every outcome to be mapped out in advance. Scorpio, this is the kind of awareness that shifts everything quietly but completely. Because once you see that the barrier was never external, that it lived in the tension between holding on and allowing, you begin to feel a different kind of movement within yourself, one that isn't forced, one that doesn't come from pressure, but from a deeper alignment with where you already are. And as that alignment settles in, something else begins to open. Not just around you, but within you, leading you gently into the next layer of this journey, where what you've been feeling starts to connect with something even more personal, even more real. There's a different kind of space you begin to enter now, one that feels quieter, softer, yet deeper than anything you've moved through so far. It's the space where the intensity settles, where the need to figure everything out gives way to something more intimate, the willingness to feel. Because beneath all the patterns, beneath the control, beneath the searching, there are moments that shaped you in ways that still live inside your body. Heartbreak that didn't fully speak its truth, disappointment that lingered longer than you expected, emotions that learned to stay just below the surface, like a current moving through deep water. And you've carried them with strength, not as something fragile, but as something contained, something you learned to hold with composure, with awareness, with a kind of quiet endurance. Yet within that containment, there is also something waiting, not to be fixed, but to be felt in a different way. Because what if those emotions were never obstacles? What if they were signals, impressions left behind to guide you, to show you where something mattered, where something touched you deeply enough to leave an imprint? Pain, in its own way, holds memory, and within that memory lives insight that hasn't fully been opened yet. Scorpio, your emotional depth has always been more than intensity, it's perception. The ability to sense beneath words, beneath actions, beneath what is visible, and to recognize what is real, even when it remains unspoken. And this is where something begins to shift again. Instead of moving away from discomfort, you begin to sit with it, not as something overwhelming, but as something meaningful, like lowering yourself into still water, where at first the temperature feels sharp, but slowly your body adjusts, and what once felt intense becomes almost grounding. There is wisdom here. Every moment that once felt heavy, every experience that left a mark, carries a layer of understanding that now becomes available to you. Not through analysis, but through presence, through allowing yourself to stay with what arises without needing to change it immediately. And as you remain in that space, something softens even further. The edges of those past emotions begin to lose their sharpness, not because they disappear, but because your relationship to them evolves. They become part of your awareness, part of your depth, part of the quiet strength that now supports you from within. And from this place, a new kind of movement starts to emerge. One that feels less like effort and more like alignment, gently guiding you toward how you choose to act from here. Something begins to feel different in the way you move, not in a dramatic sense, but in the small, almost unnoticeable choices you start making throughout your day. You reach for what feels lighter, what feels more natural, what creates a sense of quiet ease instead of pressure. It may look simple from the outside. You take a walk without overthinking it. You return to something creative you once set aside. You allow yourself to pause without turning it into a problem that needs solving. These moments carry a different kind of energy, one that flows instead of forces. There is a shift happening in how you relate to action itself. Before, action may have felt tied to outcome, to proving something, fixing something, securing something. Each step carried weight, a sense that it needed to lead somewhere specific, that it had to matter in a defined way. Now, something begins to loosen within that structure. You start to act from a place of connection rather than pressure. It shows up in the way you follow what feels quietly meaningful, even if it doesn't immediately make sense. A conversation you choose to have, a project you begin without fully mapping it out, a moment where you allow yourself to express something real without filtering it through expectation. Scorpio, this is alignment in motion. It doesn't announce itself loudly, and it doesn't demand certainty. It moves like water, finding its own path, adjusting, flowing, responding to what is present rather than trying to control where it must go. And in that movement, there is a kind of trust that begins to grow. You may notice that when something truly resonates, your body responds differently. There's less resistance, less hesitation, more clarity in the simplest decisions. You move, and the movement feels supported from within, as if you are no longer pushing against something unseen. Joy becomes a signal here, not a loud or overwhelming excitement, but a steady sense of rightness, a feeling that you are in tune with what you are doing, even in small ways. And the more you follow that feeling, the more your actions begin to organize themselves around what actually fits you now. There is no need to force direction when direction is already forming through you. And as you continue moving in this way, something in your outer world starts to reflect that inner shift. Subtly at first, then more clearly, guiding you into how this alignment begins to take shape in your work, your connections, and the structure of your daily life. As this internal shift continues to settle, you may begin to notice how it quietly reflects into the structure of your everyday life. The changes aren't loud or immediate, but they show up in subtle adjustments, in the way situations unfold with a slightly different tone than before. In your work, there may be moments of tension that surface, small misunderstandings, differences in direction, or a sense that something no longer fits as smoothly as it once did. Yet within that friction, there is also movement, as if these moments are gently redirecting you towards something that aligns more closely with who you are becoming. What once felt like pressure begins to reveal itself as opening. Financially, there is a sense of rebuilding taking place, not from urgency, but from awareness. You begin to see your resources, your decisions, your priorities with clearer eyes, allowing you to move towards stability in a way that feels grounded rather than reactive. There is a quiet strength in this process, one that builds steadily beneath the surface. In your relationships, something becomes more defined. You start to recognize what truly resonates with your values, what feels mutual, what carries depth instead of surface connection. Choices begin to come from a place of clarity rather than habit, guiding you toward connections that feel balanced, where energy flows both ways without the need to constantly adjust yourself. And as these areas begin to shift, even in small ways, a larger picture starts to form. It becomes easier to see how everything is gradually aligning, how the internal awareness you've been developing is now shaping your external reality, piece by piece. Nothing feels forced, nothing feels sluchaya. Everything carries a sense of quiet intention that builds over time. Scorpio, this is the kind of alignment that doesn't demand attention, yet it changes everything. You are watching your life reorganize itself through the way you think, the way you feel, the way you choose. And as this continues, it naturally leads you into a deeper understanding of what this entire phase has been preparing you for. Stepping into the next chapter with a sense of clarity that feels both steady and alive. As April 11th to 12th continues to unfold, something within you has already shifted. Quietly, almost imperceptibly, yet in a way that changes how you stand within your own life. It isn't something you need to announce or define. It's something you begin to feel in the way your energy settles, in the way your choices start to come from a different place. There is a sense of space now. Where there was once tension, there is a soft openness. Where there was once the need to hold tightly, there is a subtle willingness to allow things to move, to form, to arrive in their own timing. This is where trust begins to take root, not as an idea, but as a lived experience within you. You are not becoming someone new in the way you may have once imagined. What's happening feels more like a return, a quiet alignment with the version of you that has been waiting beneath the layers of expectation, of protection, of patterns that once felt necessary. Scorpio, this is your threshold. Not a dramatic crossing, not a moment marked by noise or certainty, but a gentle step forward into something that feels both unfamiliar and deeply known at the same time. Like standing before a door that has already opened, where all that remains is your willingness to walk through it. And you are already moving, even in the smallest ways, even in choices that seem almost insignificant. There is a new direction forming, a current that carries you forward without force, guiding you toward experiences, connections, and paths that reflect who you are now becoming. There is no need to rush this. Let it unfold with you. Let it meet you where you are, step by step, moment by moment. Because what is opening here is not temporary. It is a new way of moving through your life with clarity that feels steady, grounded, and quietly alive. If this journey resonated with you, take a moment to like, share, or subscribe as a way of continuing this space of reflection together. And if you can feel yourself stepping into this new version of you, Scorpio, comment, "I'm ready." Let that be your way of acknowledging what has already begun within you.